Stop! Welcome to the Eternity's Advent, version 2. Earth's Federal Navy's premier battleship. If you're just here for the workshop link, down below. Otherwise, sit back and enjoy. I figured I'd show off the new ship, show off the new additions, facilities, logic, whatever and more. Before getting started though, we have to thank our boy, Harbinger Ace. His workshop is also linked down below, or you can just get to it via the Eternity link. He is the main creator of this vessel, though much of the crew did help him out throughout the construction process. So thanks to them too, especially Dolphin. I'll link somewhere up there. I'll link the previous generation of the Eternity, the one you see throughout Season 1. But this is the version 2, so let's get started. While looking at this vessel, it's important to understand that she's incredibly formidable, and also has the highest concentration of firepower in the series. But a single squadron which she regularly goes up against will always or generally eclipse her, combined with the fact that she is so big that essentially even at extreme ranges, you can basically point shoot her antenna signal and be guaranteed a hit because she is so long, especially lengthwise. So she's quite powerful, but at the end of the day, she is a lone vessel. A lot of her design considerations kind of hint at the fact that she's more of a capital ship, like an aircraft carrier in a modern navy, even though she's a battleship, versus actually being a vessel that's meant to go toe-to-toe with multiple assets, 1v5, 1v4, whatever. A lot of her budget design considerations and bulk comes from the fact that she has large crew quarters, massive hangar, and more. She is, and always will be, designed for function in a fleet or even a small squadron. Never really as a sole vessel, which is ironic because in the series she generally operates as a sole vessel. So, yeah, just something to consider when we go throughout this vessel. It was decided after the Battle of the Titans that, in her nearly entirely gutted state, a lot of overhauls needed to be done. The first on the list was weapons. We went from a fairly strong complement to a even stronger main broadside at the expense of secondaries. While her broadside was certainly lethal, it was getting to the point where a single broadside, either the top, dorsal, or ventral setup, was actually approaching parity with some of the stuff that other factions were beginning to field, and certainly compared to an entire faction's squadron that would go up against her. Relatively speaking, this doesn't change too much other than just give her a little more oomph when it comes to her siege and close quarter brawling and medium range capability, right? Because at the end of the day, this main battery is her main weapon system. This is what gets her kills. Interestingly enough as well, a huge part of the overhaul was reducing redundancy. We removed a huge thruster bank that she used to have. We removed as many conveyors as humanly possible, and then we centralized everything into the smallest area possible. This might seem incredibly silly, because you'd think, oh, redundancy is good. And that is correct, redundancy is good. But in battles that threaten the Eternity's survivability, we would always get hull compromised and we would begin to lose vital internal systems. And while a complex conveyor network with a lot of redundancies was useful in that it kept our thrust system up for the longest time possible, it ended up that it actually became too complex. Thus, consolidating the conveyor systems for the main vital systems, so weapons, thrust, by condensing their location, damage control could get to them in a much more rapid fashion. And this ended up actually being important, at least in theory. The Ratway, which was this main corridor up here and at the bottom, I'll show you in a second, was designed such that you could always run down the length of the Ratway and access all weapon systems, access the entire main conveyor network, and simply just run down it until you bumped into the damaged area, repair it, and that would instantly get your systems, your thrust, and whatever back online. So, The end result was, while we would lose thrust or weapons more readily, right, it would only take 30 minutes to or 30 seconds to a minute to actually repair said systems, which was deemed a acceptable compromise. Because damage control is a large part of what makes the Eternity durable, this damage control centric design of less conveyors, but all the conveyors are in a accessible location and easily, most importantly, easily identifiable where the damage is, that became the one of the main design considerations of the Eternity Mark II. Some other minor changes was the slight reduction in hangar size. We now no longer have a double hangar deck for the Pelican/Manta, or actually it was a triple hangar deck. We reduced that size greatly, increasing the size of the Ratway, and also making room for things like the CIC. Speaking of the CIC, that is located right about here. You can't see all of it. The main part of the CIC would be roughly here, which is the section deleted. But if we go over to the Eternity itself, you can see right here, this is the new CIC. We are currently located in vertical access way. That is this piece right here. This gets you throughout the verticality of the ship in the most convenient manner possible. It goes a little deeper and taller, but it's offset, so in this cutout you don't see all of it. We're located right here. We'll start at the top. So we have crew quarters and the crew lounge. We'll start with the crew quarters. You guys have already seen this. Each room has buttons to reduce server strain and just to have lights out. You can see a basic crew quarter right here. This is for the enlisted. Don't look at that screen. Oh god. So I should probably not come up here because the crew have customized it for their own liking. But this is where the enlisted personnel of the EFN hang out at. Going across from us, we get to the lounge area. This is where most of the crew will be hanging out. You'll notice this is in a new location. Going up gets us to other crew quarters. These crew quarters are considered fancy crew quarters, for the lack of a better term, and generally are kept if the crew is to expand in the future, or if we have high-ranking guests aboard, like let's say admirals, rear admirals, so on and so forth. So that is what that area is for. Over here gives us access to the Ratways. Once again, the Ratways is the section of the ship designed for causeway access throughout the length of the ship, right? Maintenance tunnels, for the lack of a better term. And moving along here, you can kind of see where we are right now. We have access to more quarters. Once again, the Eternity felt the need to expand her crew capabilities, thus we can take on more personnel if needed. And that brings us to the hangar. It's worth noting, as you can see, there's this to the side, and because we cut down the middle of the ship, this actual corridor is missing. But we are now in the hangar. We'll come back to that later. So let's go back to the main vertical access way. Right here. And we'll go down one level. More crew quarters. Am I out of power? Seriously? There we go. And yeah, it's actually a minefield on the ship about where I can go. Yeah, I'm not going to turn on the lights. I'm scared of turning on the lights because those turn on LCDs and the crew have been customizing drastically. But yeah, these are excess crew quarters. I imagine we will put other enlisted personnel in here once the nicer facilities begin filling up. Moving down, this is more access to the Ratway. Oxygen storage is here. This is where a lot of our oxygen supplies would be held, as well as, for the lack of a better term, RP rooms, right? We don't technically need these to be functional, but it is what it is. We have toilets throughout, because you never know when Dolphin's cooking is going to get to you. You need that on instant access. And then moving forward. Okay, so this is the fob room, or sorry, we don't call it fobs anymore. This is the Lance room. This is her main weapon system up front. You can see we have a quad set up right here. As you can see, right, this was that RP room I talked about. Oxygen, RP. And then here is the Ford battery, the Lances. And we have 4 of them staggered with an aiming reticle for the camera. The camera is right behind it. This helps us put in lead. And they are salvoed such that not all 4 of them fire, because that's redundant, right? You just want a hit, you don't need 4 hits. Moving down the vertical accessway, this gets us to the new cargo container area. If you recognize, or perhaps realize, the old cargo container area was located roughly over here. But we decided, since so much of the vital systems was at the rear of the ship, specifically our main thruster assembly, we actually wanted that away from that, right? Because when a cargo container breaks, all of the guts come out, and those become incredibly damaging throughout the ship, so we wanted to move that away. This way, also, if we lose the rear of the ship, our cargo, ammo, magazines, all that is located actually more in a more defended area of the ship, and we'll actually keep one or the other instead of losing both, right? And because of how targeting works in this system, the enemy AI generally targets the bridge, followed by the rear of the ship. And enemies, typically, the SOPs of fighting the Eternity actually revolves around actually attacking the rear of the ship and her main thruster concentration. So, we've moved that forward, and this is our new magazine/cargo area. So that's right here now. Moving down, we have our main airlocks, the way you get in and out of the ship. Here is the armory. This is where Rodor likes to spend its time. Or actually, maybe Rodor doesn't like spending his time here, because the only time he comes here is when I yell at him to get rid of his rocket launcher that he somehow magically acquired. Back here, you have access to like a, what would you call it? Like a shower area, right? Because, you know, you just got back from your away mission. You probably want to take off your suit, take a shower, take a dump. And this is where you prep up. We have all of our weapons, rocket launchers, machine guns, you name it. Moving down, you can see we are now located over here. It looks like the accessway ends here, but that's not true. That's only because we have to remove a section of the ship, right? You can't have half blocks, so the stairs continue down in this area right here. Moving further down, we reach the CIC. We have a nice picture of the Autumn running away like a little bitch. Better viewed from far due to the lack of pixels. We also have the main gyroscope of the vessel located here. Computer systems, our turret scripts, our fire control systems, salvo for our main weapons, so on and so forth. The helmsman sits up here, so he still has access to a velocity vector indicator, access to shields, so on and so forth. The XO sits here, and the CO sits right here in his aluminum foil gold encrusted chair. And then, of course, sodas. Moving rearward, we have immediate access. This is where Dolphin would want to hang out, right? So he can go straight into the CIC to help out, or move here for damage control throughout the ship. This is the hangar, like control area, if you want to call it that. You can see that here. And then moving rearward gets us to the CIC. Remember, the CIC is on the second story right here as well. Yeah, you can see a panel. let's keep moving to the heart of the ship. Or I guess we are in the heart of the ship. Oh, and this is also more access to the Ratway. Say Pyro, right? He's one of our main our main damage control persons, or Dolphin, who sits up there, runs around, gets access to the Ratway. And don't worry, we'll show you the Ratway soon enough. Going on further, we have the medical area. This is where we would, air quotes, respawn, or just deal with medical issues. Duh. Once again, there are a concerning amount of things on the LCD screens that I was not aware of that show up. I try to get rid of them, but they keep showing up. Here we have essentially an RP room where supplies are kept. Right. The Eternity was never fully finished before she moved out, so Dolphin will spend a lot of time here. He's working on a number of projects like improving the Eternity's signature, or ability to jam, our long-range sensors. All of these were incomplete when the Eternity left, while she was undergoing trial runs, and we're working on a lot of that here. And then this gets us to the rear hangar. But we're not ready for the rear hangar yet. Or the hangar, it's not rear. This gets us down to the probably most used toilet on the Eternity. This thing, you don't want to open this. Like, make sure you have your helmet visor down. Moving forward, this gets us to the bridge, where we spend a lot of time. It's a probably pretty familiar sight to those that hang out or watch the series. Captain sits here, Exo sits here, and everyone else sits on these seats here. Dolphin and Pyro generally won't be up here because they're more engineering oriented. Tiber will sub in when he needs to, but he's generally he's more revolving around the Pelican and Manta usage, so it'll depend on the day. The helmsman, when we're not in combat condition, has a very good access or viewport down here, and has very good vantage for actually such a large warship, which is not something you typically can get. Viewing that from the exterior, you can see that it's located right down here. I wouldn't say it's necessarily vulnerable, but it's also not exactly recessed that well. We will lose the bridge in a hard-fought fight. And that's up here. Very iconic for what this ship was actually technically based off of. A more survivable variant of this would be a mandible version, where we had armor underneath us as well, such that you can only get shots in from the side. But, right, this is based off of a specific source material, so it is what it is. Yeah, I dig this bridge. It's a good bridge. Here we have access to the radar sections of what we can see. We have Link's drink tally, which is... I think it's actually gone down in the last couple days. Moving into here, this is the captain's work area, because I want to be close to the bridge. I might need to do some comms with someone else, and I don't want the crew to hear it, so I'll move back here with the Exo. We can talk, discuss, and then move back into the bridge and get things done, because the captain's quarters are actually quite far away because of the size of the ship. Here we have glorious kill counts. Amazing. I believe the script is off right now, so it's not scrolling, because it is longer than this. And then, of course, my private bathroom with wood. Pretty sure this is plastic, but wood flooring. What the... Yeah, you can see through the... good job, Keen. Moving further down, we get to the main horizontal accessway. Up forward, there's really not much here. Just excess rooms, for the lack of a better term. So let's move along the horizontal accessway. This is the main way you can access the ship horizontally without going into the access tunnels, or the Ratway, as we like to call it. So we are now located here. And this moves along here. This is a emergency accessway to the bottom Ratway, which can also be accessed actually from back here. These are both, air quotes, emergency ways to get there. You can grind through it. Other than that, it's more of a visual thing. Moving along here, you have access to the meeting room. When the room is in session, you turn this on, the door's locked. across the way, right? If you're setting up for the meeting, you can come in more of this loungy room area. We like to bring guests in here because they have access to the fabled Clan Cola, copious advertisements during the military, and, just refreshments, right? It's always good to discuss things over food instead of just in a sterile meeting room. And then, of course, we have the Stonks picture. Moving further down the ship, we have more in this accessway, more bathrooms, because really, Dolphin's food is out of control, man. We have the brig. This is where we can put people. You throw them on the inside. An area which you will see in the series. I'll let you guys check this out. It's a really cool room, but I'll keep that as a special surprise for anyone that downloads this. We are now passing underneath the hangar and moving towards the rear section of the ship. Going low gets us to engineering. You have more engineering supplies for repairs and the likes. This is our refinery area and our assembly area, all localized together. And then we finally get to main engineering. The Eternity runs off of 4 reactor engines, and we also have an auxiliary hydrogen drive, right? Because we have a lot of hydrogen, we can burn it if we so feel like we need to, right? If reactors have issues, whatever. This area is nestled under a lot of armor, so it's incredibly hard to take out. As you can see, it's located near the back over here, and the back has a quadruple layer of armor protecting it, right? You have the outer layer, you actually have the engines, a secondary layer, and then 2 more layers protecting it. Semi-weak point here in the sense that a lot of ships will decide they attack the Eternity from the rear, and directly from the rear, you basically only have the hydrogens and some armor protecting it until you get to the reactor room. Going up 1 level, we get to the crew quarters, or the officers, or the command staff. Right, we have the captain's quarters right here. This is what I was saying. It's good to have a secondary captain's quarter closer to the bridge and the CIC, just for use case. We'll go turn on our TVs and stuff. And you can kind of see Captain Brock's legacy or previous commands. The White Aft. Yeah. So over here, we have the Sigmarius with her homies. The Snuggles, God rest her soul. And the Sword of Dawn, ditto, from a previous era. Then we have the Into the Fray. This is Ace's reworked version. It's a pretty good ship, actually. I like how it looks. Then you have the Osiris, originally 11th Fleet vessel, but then taken and commissioned into the Navy. Oh, and I guess when I'm really bored... wrong one. Oh, wrong one. It's hard to keep track of which button is which without looking at the... doing this. So yeah, then Captain Brock can watch some Battlestar Galactica and get some ideas. Once again, tons of cargo containers throughout the ship because the ship wasn't ready for touch-off. She was just doing preliminary testing, so a lot of stuff hasn't been unpacked, and Brock and the crew have been quite busy, we'll just say. And that's a throwback for those that know. Moving down here, you get access to the XO and the Chief's quarters. Here are the XO's quarters. You've seen it once or twice. He was a big fan of having a second deck where he can go hang out, like a little monkey gym. And yeah, he sleeps up here. These are quite luxurious quarters by even EFN standards. We get access to the ratways. So, if you were previously messing with the ship, you'd think, oh, isn't that Dolphin's quarters? Well, actually, I completely forgot to mention this. Dolphin's quarters have been moved. They're now located up here, and you'll see it in the series, right? Remember that corridor right here? Out to here. Dolphin's quarters have been moved closer to engineering, thus he can be in his quarters and then immediately move to damage control should a general quarters alarm be sounded. He can also observe the hangar and see what the hooligans, the enlisted, are up to. hangar. It's been downsized a fair bit, but we weren't really using most of it, being a very small, undersized crew, right? We're incredibly short-staffed due to the nature of how the Eternity deployed. That leads to the central area of the ship. We were just over there. We have currently a Pelican, or Osprey, docked. This is the Osprey 1. Osprey 02 died, so we're only down to a single Osprey. And this is the Fat Larry. She is a quite capable vessel. I can't wait to use her in action. And then up here is where the Manta would be parked. The Manta is currently not in the ship for reasons I think won't be apparent to the viewer yet, so I'm not really going to get into that. From here, you can access some of the utility areas. Oh, wrong one. It's down one. It's down one floor. You can access the utility areas, or I guess the causeways, or whatever you want to call it. There we go. So this is where our hydrogen is stored. We have two, or we have one, because we really only need one, and it gives a cool thing where the hostiles can actually look to destroy Eternity's systems. Moving rearward, we finally get to the access ways, and this is where we'll probably end our thing. Like I said, we've downsized to a very simplistic thruster setup. Yes, a lot of these thrusters are interior, and that's just to preserve the look of what the ship is based off of. Right, because the ship doesn't really have any exterior thruster packs, visually. Right now we're at the back of the ship. This leads to the rear thruster assembly. They are color-coded, so damage control can find it easily where leaks are located. You just simply move until you find red. Alright, so moving rearward, you can kind of see the simplified conveyor system in our large area. We have about 2 to 1 sheets of armor above us and 2 to 1 sheets of armor below us to the central area of the ship. So let's just imagine the ship is currently under fire right now. Here is one of the 400 millimeters, the rearmost one. And if you go up here, you can begin either repairing it, right? This is the 400 mil right here. So you can repair it, or if that gets damaged, you can begin to manually load it. There will be different times throughout a battle where we need different things, right? Sometimes we need weapons now, and the damage control can purely focus on weapons. And generally, weapons going down if the weapon is destroyed, less likely, or the conveyor system is severed and it's out of ammo. And that's what you would do here. You can run along here. You see green, 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 and you would simply run along the conveyor section. We have 2 for redundancy. And you can just see until the green stops where repairs are needed. You simply go into one of these, have, a conveyor in, and you can just middle mouse click, it'll pull the materials you need to repair the conveyor systems. This leads into the heart of the ship, but this leads to a 400 millimeter gun, and as you move rearward, you can see access to all of the 400 mm guns. Seats strategically placed so when the ship jumps, because the captain doesn't give a fuck, you can get to a seat. Here's another 400 millimeter. And the Ford, 2 400 millimeters. Dorsal 1. And that concludes the access way to the quarters. And then obviously a bunch of different ways to get to different parts of the ships from the access ways. I like the ship. Of the ships in this series, this is probably the most thoughtfully designed ship in terms of being the most realistic it could be in terms of a survival ship that is meant for war, right? Sword of Dawn was very interesting in this aspect, but because it's such a smaller ship, it's very difficult to create access ways to everything, and the Sword of Dawn doesn't have that damage control capability, which is really what I think sets the Eternity apart as a unique vessel, that she is fully damage control set up, and there are multiple armored areas and non-armored areas and concentrations, so on and so forth. She also has really unique capabilities as a capital ship with vast crew quarters, accommodations, food, amenities to keep the crew happy, so on and so forth, and really paints herself as a unique, albeit quite large, vessel. Hey, I hope you enjoyed watching that. There are a couple things I intentionally left out, stuff hidden away in the ratways, interesting rooms hidden away in the ratways, monitors that I can't show on YouTube for fear of being demonetized. There are some things on here. Most of them I don't even know about because they keep changing on a rapid basis. But that is that. I hope you guys enjoy this, and see you guys around. Series should be rolling out in full force now, so if you want to see the ship in action weekly, well, every Friday I'm releasing videos, so consider subscribing for that. Anyways, it's been fun. We'll see you guys around.